and in the council chamber, please raise your hand to indicate your request and you will be let into the meeting at an appropriate time. Anyone wishing to speak in Welsh at the meeting, could you please indicate before you commence so that participants and those viewing have time to access the translation services provided. With regard to voting on recommendations, if there is no dissent to a recommendation, I will accept the silence as agreement. Should a vote be required, the request to vote will be displayed on the screen for remote attendees and on the display buttons on the microphones in the chamber. If during the meeting you have any technical difficulties, I think you're not on mute, Councillor Thomas. If during the meeting you have any technical difficulties, please let Democratic Services officers know as soon as possible. Thank you. Agenda item 1, apologies for absence. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Could I give apologies on behalf of Councillor Kaup, but also could I just clarify whether or not anybody speaking at home needs to change their channel to make sure that they hear the English translation of me speaking rather than the Welsh one?
English is the default. Councillor Carroll.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Apologies from Councillors Vince Driscoll, Charles Champion and Robert Fisher. Councillor Nick Wood is stuck in traffic. He's hoping to join the meeting, but that depends on his journey.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Burnett.
Can I give apologies from Councillor Aviat and wish her a speedy recovery?
Thank you. Do we have any more apologies? No. Moving on. Agenda item 2, roll call and declarations of interest. I will now ask the Chief Executive to take the roll call and any declarations of interest and the nature of any interests.
Yeah, good evening. If you can advise if you're present and if you have an interest and the nature of that interest when replying. So start off with Councillor Anne Asprey, please. I'll come back to Councillor Asprey. Councillor Gareth Ball.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Rhiannon Birch.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Bronwyn Brooks. Councillor Brooks. I'll come back. Councillor Gillian Bruce. Come back. Councillor Ian Buckley.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Liz Burnett.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Samantha Campbell.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor George Carroll.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Christine Cave. Councillor Cave.
Nothing to declare.
Thank you. Councillor Janice Charles. Councillor Millie Collins.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Pamela Drake.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Anthony Ernest. I'll come back. Councillor Chris Franks. Thank you. Councillor Wendy Gilligan. Councillor Gilligan. Councillor
Present and nothing to declare.
Thank you. Councillor Russell Godfrey. Councillor Emma Goodjohn.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Ewan Goodjohn.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Stephen Haynes.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Howard Hamilton. Councillor Hamilton. Councillor Sally Hanks. Councillor William Hennessy.
Present, and I would like to declare on agenda item 3A. I'm a council tenant of the Vale of Glamorgan. It's a personal one, not prejudicial, and under the code of conduct, I'm entitled to vote and speak.
Thank you. Councillor Nick Hodges.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Mark Hooper. Councillor Catherine Iannucci.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Gwyn John.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Ian Johnson.
Presennol a dim byd i ddatgan.
Councillor Susan Lloyd Selby.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Belinda Lovelock Edwards.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Julie Lynch Wilson.
Present, and I would like to declare on agenda item 3A. I have a personal interest as a council tenant, but it doesn't equate to a prejudicial interest having regard to the council's code of conduct.
Thank you. Councillor Kevin Marnie.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Naomi Marshalsea.
And presennol a ddim byd i ddatgan.
Councillor Michael Morgan. Councillor Morgan. Okay, Councillor Jane Norman.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Helen Payne.
Presennol and nothing to declare.
Councillor Elliot Penn.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Sandra Perks.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Ian Perry. Councillor Perry.
Present, nothing to declare.
Thank you. Councillor Joanna Prothero. Councillor Ruba Sivinianum.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Caris Stallard. Councillor Neil Thomas.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Rhys Thomas.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Steffan William. Councillor William. Councillor Margaret Wilkinson.
To declare in this meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Eddie Williams.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Mark Wilson.
Present and nothing to declare.
And Councillor Nicholas Wood. I don't know if he's arrived yet. Okay. I can see Councillor Prothero on screen. Councillor Prothero, anything to declare?
Yes, I'm here. I've got nothing to declare. Can you hear me now?
I can. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you.
I'm going to go back through the list. We'll start again with Councillor Anne Asprey, please. No luck. Councillor Bronwyn Brooks.
Present and nothing to declare.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. Councillor Julian Bruce. Yeah, I'll come back to you now. Councillor Anthony Ernest.
Present, nothing to declare.
Thank you, Councillor Ernest. Councillor Howard Hamilton.
Present, nothing to declare.
Thank you. Councillor Sally Hanks. Councillor Hanks, can you hear me?
Present, nothing to declare.
Thank you. Councillor Michael Morgan. Councillor Caris Stallard. Councillor Steffan William. Okay. Councillor Johnson.
Councillor Johnson.
I mean, sorry, Chair. Just to say that both Councillor Asprey and Councillor William are contacting me by WhatsApp to say that they're trying to get online and say the sound's going and things like that. Councillor Asprey, of course, was here in the room, and we were told that there were no spaces because we've used our required allotted here, whereas obviously there are clearly spaces, and she could have been here, and part of it, Councillor William could have been as well. But that's a matter, obviously, of another time. But it's not particularly not helpful the way this is going, is it? Thank you, Mayor.
Noted. Councillor Godfrey.
Councillor Bruce, she's tried to answer twice. And she said she can see you on the screen, but obviously we can't see on the
Okay.
Councillor Steffan William here. Can you hear me now?
We can, Stefan.
Yeah,
Councillor William.
Can I ask Councillor William, whilst you've got the floor, so to speak, have you got any declarations of interest?
No, I hold the conch, but I have nothing to declare.
Thank you very much. Diolch.
Councillor Burnett.
Point of order, the rest of us can't hear what the leader is.
My apologies, Councillor Franks. I wasn't whispering. I was asking for clarification on who hadn't been able to connect so that we could contact them separately and they could come online, as you have just done so with Councillor William.
Could I just remind all members to silence their phones, please? Thank you.
Chair, if I may, I can see Councillor Bruce on the screen. So, Councillor Bruce, can I ask if you've got any declarations of interest?
No, nothing to declare.
Thank you very much. So that leaves Councillor Asprey, who we know is from our system, is actually logged on. And we also know that Councillor William has been online. Councillor Stallard is the other one that we're not showing, and Councillor Morgan.
Apologies for the small technical issues. If you just have a bit of patience, members, thank you.
And
Councillor Johnson.
Sorry, Mayor. Is it not sensible just simply to ask Councillor Asprey to come and join us in the room rather than being sat downstairs or wherever she is? I mean, we've got enough empty seats in here.
Councillor Carroll.
Yes, in the interest of convenience for everyone, the Conservative group would be happy to allow Councillor Asprey to use one of our allocated spaces for this evening, if that would help.
Yes, Councillor Asprey can attend. If you'd like to send her a message, Councillor Johnson, that would be most appreciated. Thank you.
Can I interject, Chair, whilst I can see Councillor Stallard on screen as well? Do you have any declarations of interest, Councillor Stallard?
No, dim byd of ddatgan.
Thank you. Diolch yn fawr. So if members bear with us, we will let Councillor Asprey get settled, and then we can ask Councillor Asprey if she's got any declarations of interest as well.
Are they reading for me? Yeah. Presennol a dim byd i ddatgan.
Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you very much. So that concludes the roll call. With the exception of Councillor Morgan, who's just sent me an email to say that he's trying his best to get in and asking for assistance. So hopefully somebody's providing that assistance.
I'll go and do that.
Thank you, Chair.
Brilliant. Thank you. Councillor Perry, could you turn your request to speak button off, please? Thank you very much. Thank you, Chief Executive. Moving on, thank you for your patience, members. Forgive a few technical hiccups. Okay, sorry. Moving on, agenda item 3, Council Tax Reduction Scheme, reference from Cabinet meeting on the 14th of December 2023. Leader Councillor Liz Burnett, I understand you will be presenting this reference.
Yep, thank you, Mayor. This, as you said, this is a reference from Cabinet on the 14th of December. It's pretty much a housekeeping report in that it's reconfirming the arrangements for the council tax reduction scheme, which are the same as were agreed by council last year. There are three discretions, that apply, and that's that the council should continue to allow extended payments up to a maximum of 4 weeks. The council should continue to disregard war widow and war disablement pensions in assessing income for council tax reduction, and that the council should continue to allow backdated reductions for a period of 26 weeks. So as I said, that Cabinet recommended to full council that the council tax reduction schemes and prescribed requirements, Wales regulations, SI 2013 3029, and the council tax reduction schemes regulations 2014 SI 2014/66 be adopted. And the second recommendation is that it was recommended that full council note that any amendments to regulations made by Welsh Government are reflected in the scheme. And as I said, that it's recommended that the national scheme is adopted with the discretions that I laid out earlier. So I would move, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Burnett, Leader. Do I have a seconder?
And I'll second those recommendations.
Thank you. I see no show of hands, so I will take there's no dissent. Recommendations carried. That brings to a close the council meeting. We shall reconvene. Oh. Because we've overrun slightly, we shall go straight into the next council meeting. Welcome again, everyone, well, you're still here, to the special full council meeting, 15th of January. I have to go through Councillor Burnett.
Apologies for absence from Councillor Julie Aviott, please.
Thank you. Welcome all. Before we begin, I just have to do housekeeping again. Before we begin, may I advise of a few housekeeping issues. I would like to remind members that under the Council's multi-location meeting policy, this meeting will be recorded and uploaded to the Council's website as soon as possible after the meeting. Can I also ask all members that mics and cameras are switched off until you are invited to speak? For remote attendees, should you wish to speak, would you please indicate by pressing your request to speak button on the screen? And for members who are present in the council chamber, please raise your hand to indicate your request and you will be let into the meeting at the appropriate time. Anyone wishing to speak in Welsh at the meeting, could you please indicate before you commence so that participants and those viewing have time to access the translation services prior to speaking. With regard to voting on recommendations, if there is no dissent to a recommendation, I will accept the silence as agreement. Should a vote be required, the request to vote will be displayed on screen for remote attendees and on display buttons on the microphones in the chamber. If during the meeting you have any technical difficulties, please let Democratic Service officers know as soon as possible. Agenda item 1, apologies for absence. We have Julie Aviat and Charles Champion and Marianne Cowp, I'm aware of. Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Do we have any other apologies? Councillor Carroll.
Councillors Champion, Driscoll and Fisher, and if his journey isn't complete yet, Councillor Wood as well.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other apologies? Nope, good. Agenda item 2, the roll call and Councillor Johnson, sorry I missed you there.
Sorry, Chair. It's just as a matter of protocol, it's traditional that members are supposed to stand whilst speaking during meetings. I'm seeing Councillor Burnett shaking her head, and I'm just checking where we are on that. Just that simply that the cameras are set up for us to be seated while speaking rather than standing, and yet it seems I'm sure that's just trying to where we are on the constitution on that. Thank you. Just a clarification, please.
Yes. Can I bring in the monitor officer to clarify on that? You're on mute, Debbie.
Thank you. I will check under the multi-location meeting policy, but it is in the discretion of the chair, should you, for convenience sake, feel that in the circumstances, particularly with the positioning of the camera, that it might be more appropriate for members to remain seated. But I'll come back on camera when I've checked the exact wording in the MLM policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Monitor Officer. Councillor Franks.
Thank you. I wonder if there could be a point of clarification. What?
Councillor Franks, are you here?
I wonder if there could be a point of clarification regarding the allocation of seats. Now, we've seen tonight the problem with seating one of our members. However, there are benches and seats and acres of space that are unoccupied. This really brings this authority into disrepute. Now, I'm very sorry that Labour can't be bothered to get out of their houses, especially cabinet members and face council. But this policy is not working, you know. Where are these people, and why can't other people be sitting in these seats? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Franks.
Yeah, I can try and assist Councillor Franks because I think all group leaders were advised of the seat allocation and were asked to provide details as to who was going to come to this meeting this evening. And obviously, there are a certain amount of seats allocated to each group. And that's the way the system was set up. This evening, there are more applied members than seats available, so we've accommodated Councillor Asprey. Under normal circumstances, that wouldn't be permissible, especially if every group had taken up their seat allocation. So that's where we are. Probably after this evening, what we'll have to review is whether, if we know there are empty seats, whether those seats can be offered up to other groups.
Thank you, Chief Executive. That's clear. But what's not clear is why didn't Labour tell you
half their members couldn't be bothered to turn up tonight, which would have resolved one of the difficulties.
As Councillor Franks notes, the 29 Act makes it quite clear that there's no requirement for members to attend in person. Attending in person is a matter for the individual member. The allocation of seats are allocated in the traditional way that we've done for previous council meetings, that the seats were in the front rows for the administration. As I wrote to the group leaders, I've just made members, group leaders aware of that situation. There's no requirement for members to notify Democratic Services in advance whether they'll be attending or not. The choice remains with the individual preference whether they're here physically in the chamber or at another location to attend remotely. So I don't think it's about members not bothering. It's a simple entitlement that the legislation provides for, and some members have chosen not to be here present, as they've done in other meetings, hybrid meetings through scrutiny committee through the end of November and December. There's no change to that arrangement. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. A good defence of the Labour Party position, but I don't think it's acceptable.
Yes.
Can I just remind Councillor Franks, as a statutory officer, I am politically neutral, and really that's not an appropriate comment to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Franks. Councillor Marnie.
Thank you very much. Yes, I know this was only voted on just in the last meeting or so anyway, but it was pointed out this was the situation. I'm counting 18 councillors here out of, what is it, 54 in the authority. And I'd like any people watching that, the public, to take note of this. 18 councillors out of 54 in the council chamber. I obviously have very little time for the views of Plaid Cymru, but I think it's totally outrageous
Councillor Marnie,
that anybody who wishes to come here can't turn up.
Councillor Marnie, it's not a point of order. Thank you. I think we accommodated Councillor Asbury, and a response has been given to members' questions. I think we should move on to the roll call. Councillor Burnett, sorry.
I do think some of the comments so far this evening are disappointing in the extreme. I think that if we note the number of people present in this meeting, then actually there are a large number of people present. If you look at the diversity of membership of this council now, we are one of only 2 gender-balanced administrations or councils within Wales. But I actually would comment that most of that is down to the efforts of the Labour group. Under current legislation, it is perfectly in order for people to join meetings from wherever they are.
Is this appropriate for a political discussion?
I would therefore request strongly that Councillor Franks withdraws his comments from this evening. Thank you.
Which comments are those? All of them? One of them? 2 of them?
Councillors, can we move on to the roll call, please? Thank you, Councillor Franks.
All right.
I think we've all said enough. I think we should move on to the roll call now. Thank you.
Okay. So if members can indicate again if they're present, and any declarations of interest, starting with Councillor Anne Asprey, please.
Wow. Presennol, a dim byd without.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Gareth Ball.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Rhiannon Birch. Councillor Birch.
Present, nothing to declare.
Thank you. Councillor Brooks. Councillor Bronwyn Brooks, you were on screen a moment ago.
Okay. Present and nothing to declare.
Thank you. Councillor Gillian Bruce.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Ian Buckley.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Liz Burnett.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Samantha Campbell.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor George Carroll.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Christine Cave.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Janice Charles. Councillor Millie Collins.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Pamela Drake.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Anthony Ernest.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Chris Franks. Councillor Wendy Gilligan.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Russell Godfrey.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Emma Goodjohn.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Ewan Goodjohn.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Stephen Haynes.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Howard Hamilton. Councillor Hamilton. Okay, come back. Councillor Sally Hanks.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor William Hennessy.
Present, and I would like to declare under item 3A that I'm a council tenant. Oh, yeah. It's personal, not prejudicial, and under the Members' Code of Conduct, I'm entitled to vote and speak.
Thank you. Councillor Nick Hodges.
Present, nothing to declare. 17 empty seats.
Councillor Mark Hooper. Thank you. Councillor Catherine Iannucci.
Present, nothing to declare.
Thank you. Councillor Gwyn John.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Ian Johnson.
Presennol, a dim byd ddatgan.
Councillor Susan Lloyd Selby.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Belinda Lovelock Edwards.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Julie Lynch Wilson.
Present, and I would like to declare in 3A as I am a council tenant.
Thank you. Councillor Kevin Marney.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Naomi Marshalsea.
Yn bresennol a ddim byd i ddatgan.
Councillor Michael Morgan. I'll come back. Councillor Jane Norman.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Helen Payne. Councillor Helen Payne.
Yeah, sorry, it was Michael Morgan on screen, Rob, sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'd like to declare presennol. I'd like to declare on item 3A. I have dispensation to talk and vote on issues of housing and homelessness. It's in relation to my employment with LAMI.
Thank you. I'll go back to Councillor Morgan because he was on screen a moment ago. Councillor Morgan.
Yes, here I am. Can you hear and see me now?
I can, thank you, yes.
Good. So I am present and nothing to declare. I have been with the meeting on live stream, but I've only been able to join on the link now, so I haven't missed anything.
Thank you very much. Councillor Elliot Penn.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Sandra Perks. Okay, come back. Councillor Ian Perry.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Joanna Prothero.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Ruba Sivinianam.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Caris Stallard.
Yn bresennol a dim byd i ddatgan.
Councillor Neil Thomas.
Present, nothing to declare.
Thank you. I'll go back to Councillor Perks. Okay, I'll come back again. Councillor Rhys-Thomas.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Steffan William. No. Councillor Perks, can you hear me? Audio. Have you pressed your mic button, Councillor Perks? Okay. Councillor Margaret Wilkinson.
Present, and I declare in item 3 as I am a council tenant.
Okay. Councillor Eddie Williams.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Mark Wilson.
Present and nothing to declare.
Okay, I'll go back. Councillor Steffan William. No. Okay. Councillor Sandra Perks. Thank you, diolch. Councillor Sandra Perks. She's obviously connected. Hopefully somebody can help you with your audio, Councillor Perks. And Councillor Howard Hamilton.
Present and nothing to declare.
Thank you. That concludes the roll call.
Thank you, Chief Executive, and thank you, members, for your patience. Can I just bring in the monitoring officer who's been waiting to speak?
Thank you very much. There are 2 points I want to raise. I'll deal with first the point relating to points of order, and just to remind the meeting that a point of order may only relate to an alleged breach of the procedure rules, the council rules or law, and the member must indicate the rule or law that they consider has been breached at the point where they raise the point of order, and then the ruling on that point of order by the chair is final. So that needs to be borne in mind, procedural or point of law, not a general point of discussion. And then secondly, with regards to speaking at meetings, the provisions in the multi-location meeting policy provides that when a member speaks at full council, he or she must stand unless otherwise agreed by the chair. So the discretion is with yourself, Councillor Penn as chair, and that's covered off in the MLM policy, as I mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you, monitoring officer. As the cameras have been fixed on members sitting, members can stay seated if they want to. You might be off camera if you do stand up. Thank you. Moving on, agenda item 3A, final housing revenue account budget proposal 2024 to 2025, rent setting 2024 to 2025, and housing revenue account business plan 2024 to 2025. The reference from the Cabinet meeting on the 11th of January 2024 regarding this report has been circulated prior to the meeting by email. Leader, Councillor Lisbon, I understand you will be presenting the reference and report.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, as you mentioned, this is a reference from Cabinet on the 11th of January. It also was discussed the day before in Homes and Safe Communities Scrutiny Committee, and there is not yet a reference from that. However, it was agreed and Cabinet members were present, so I hope to mention some of that in presenting this report. As members would be aware, the housing revenue account is separate from the rest of the council's finances. It's a standalone account and it's not run for private profit. Historically, a number of councils transferred their housing stock into housing associations or registered social landlords, but tenants within the Vale of Glamorgan voted to remain within council control. When this report was discussed in Homes and Safe Communities Scrutiny Committee on the 10th of January, it was recommended to Cabinet that Housing Revenue Account Business Plan 2024-25 be approved. I think it's fair to say that within the plan, the council is ambitious and doesn't want to just stand alone. The ultimate aim is for the council to be its own developer, developing good quality homes for local people. We want to build more council houses. We want to upgrade existing stock so residents can live in efficient and well-maintained properties, and that they are as environmentally sustainable and low energy as possible. Welsh Government sets the policy for housing, for social housing rents, and but I think it's fair to say that council rents were around 30% lower than private rents for comparable properties. And I think that, that can be explained because private landlords obviously are seeking to make a profit from it, a private profit from it, seeking to derive an income. And whereas we will deliver a surplus, that surplus is reinvested within our aims to develop good quality housing for local people. We also need to recognise that council housing rents within the Vale are markedly below the levels charged by registered social landlords that operate within the Vale of Glamorgan. When it was discussed in Scrutiny Committee, it was also covered the levels of homelessness within the Vale of Glamorgan and how the council is trying to build itself out of that situation. There were also discussions about the increased levels of evictions. So as the private rental market is suffering the challenges of increased mortgage rates, etc., that more people are finding it difficult to maintain either tenancies or mortgages. And so families are finding themselves homeless. And within this report, not only is there provision for homes themselves, but actual provision for supporting tenants in times of hardship, so that there will be no evictions as a result of financial difficulties, on condition that tenants are talking to us. And I think that is hugely important, because some of the investment from this business plan will actually support tenants to ensure that they maximise their income. And in fact, last year, work or support that was provided for tenants actually returned £250,000 to the pockets of local people, of our tenants, so that they could maximise their income. So I'm sure that there are many people that will want to comment today. So, as I said, it's here before us for final consideration. The recommendations, there are 6 recommendations before us, as laid out in the report, and they are, as you know, there are no amendments to that. So rather than read them all out and take additional time, I would move those recommendations in their entirety. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. Do I have a seconder?
I'd like to second those recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. Yeah. Councillor Perry?
Yeah, just a point of information or clarification. I believe the legislation, I'll just try and sort my camera out, requires that members must both be seen and heard to be present. I think that the margin officer missed that point out, but I believe the legislation says seen and heard. If we can check on that, please.
Thank you, Councillor Parry. Councillor Johnson. Councillor Perks, could you mute your mic, please? Councillor Johnson.
Thank you very much. Dwi'n bwriadu
Will be using Welsh.
assuming that this should automatically be a line for people. I think that was despite what was being suggested earlier, that people online needed to have a bit of time. I think it's just everybody in the room, is that right? Os dwi'n siarad
So if I turn to Welsh, you should be able to hear me. Can everybody hear me? Or the translator, rather? Thank you very much, Mayor. Usually the discussion in the Council or Scrutiny Committee centres on how we allocate resources to maximise the money we have. It's difficult, of course, to ensure that every department or service area receives adequate funding to carry out the work that is necessary for the Council. But harder still is deciding how we raise funds from our people. Do we do this by charging council tax, charging fees and rent on residents of our council houses? Legislative rent change to the rent charging timetable has changed how much attention the council affords to the rent charging process, and the housing revenue account with the special meeting, as was the case with the special meeting last year. In the past, this was done with the council tax setting meeting with less attention afforded to it than in the new system. I welcome the additional focus on how we treat our tenants as a corporate landlord. I was present in the Housing and Community Scrutiny meeting last week, carefully taking note of the discussion. As I listened, I noticed how unfair the continuous narrative is about the cost of living crisis and the suggestion that we should increase the rent for some of the most vulnerable members of our community. I accept and understand the arguments for increasing the rent by a number of speakers, but morally it is wrong. Tonight, the Labour and Land First Cabinet are asking us to increase it by 6.7%, higher than last year's increase of 5.5%. If the Tories asked for this combined increase of 12.5%, you'd be furious. On average, an increase of almost £400, £300 last year, so a 700 hike altogether. And this is in a cost of living crisis, where wages are not keeping pace with inflation. I would like to note, by the way, that inflation is now far lower than the proposal before us tonight. As the leader said earlier, the Welsh Government made the decision to cap the increase at 6.7%, and the Vale of Glamorgan Council has decided to punish residents by raising it to the ceiling under the guidance. For those who don't remember, there was a vote held with our housing tenants to move away from council control or to stay with us. Our tenants opted to stay with us, and we should be looking after them. There is a reason why our tenants pay less than those living under social landlord control, and certainly than the free market. So, therefore, of course, the numbers on the waiting list continue to be high, given that it's cheaper than alternative provision. Is it fair, therefore, to raise the rents of vulnerable families to build new houses? There was talk last week about the number receiving an allowance and thus not paying council tax rent, but this is only around 30%. But even if you accept this, even in principle, we're still talking about 1,200 houses out of the 4,000 in our control. The Joseph Rowntree Foundation suggested that rental increases drove 40,000 tenants in Wales into poverty in the last 5 years, leading up to the pandemic. So this is clearly an issue. Why is it a priority to ensure that our books are balanced in 2053, 30 years away? The reasons of this are obviously very technical, with rules written by people not suffering from the current crisis. But why is the 2053 financial situation more important than the situations of our tenants and families now? As Stephen Evans from the Bevan Institute said in a blog in autumn, any policy that opens the guidance guaranteeing no evictions is clearly a cruel one, pushing people to financial problems. Indeed, they found that 1 in 5 tenants were in financial trouble after paying their rent. But why is the Welsh Labour government not allocating sufficient resources to improve our housing standards, cut energy bills and placing the burden on the shoulders of people in poverty instead? If the challenge and the excuse is that there is simply not enough coming from Westminster, then why do you continue to support a union that is keeping our families in poverty? Or can you promise something better after the next general election? There's no sign from the Labour Party changing. I'll reiterate my belief that it's simply unethical to cite the cost of living crisis every chance you get and then to vote for raising council tax rents more than is necessary, as we're doing so tonight. Indeed, we need to revisit how we pay for the new housing and how we repair and improve housing standards. In the meantime, Plaid Cymru Group is voting against the increase today and is requesting a recorded vote for the council record. And I'm sure 6 people tonight will be supporting me for recording this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Well, here we go again. Once more, this Labour Council has failed to manage its budgets properly. And yet again, residents are being asked to pay the price. And this time, it's council tenants who will suffer.
Councillor Carroll, could you sit down, please? Thank you. They can't see you on screen. Thank you very much.
I was led to believe it was optional, but I think perhaps we need to look again at the technology.
You weren't on camera, so we couldn't see you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Well, here we go again. Once more, this Labour Council has failed to manage its budgets properly. And yet again, residents are being asked to pay the price. This time, it's council tenants who will suffer. And let's be in no doubt, there can be no justification for the rent increase proposed this evening. Council tenants are being asked to pay 6.7% more. To put this into context, in November, inflation, as measured by the Consumer Prices Index, was just 3.9%. So it's another inflation-busting increase that residents are being asked to stump up. Now let's ask ourselves why this rise is necessary. And it's quite simple. It's down to a failure of leadership. The budget setting process requires strong leadership, but sadly this has been lacking, both from the council leader and from the cabinet. And this Labour Council's failure to manage its housing revenue account efficiently and its failure to produce a credible housing revenue account business plan has resulted in the 6.7% rise. It's the latest in a long list of examples of this Labour Council's failings. It's like the council tax rises that this Labour Council has imposed on residents, or the cuts to waste collections, or the charges introduced for the garden waste service, or the debacle surrounding Labour's bus station with no buses, or the appalling situation at Pencoitra School, which this Labour Council has failed to control, and another one this evening with the debacle of the software for these hybrid meetings that hasn't worked as intended. It is, regrettably, a very long list, and this 6.7% rise for council tenants now has to be added. It's time for this Labour administration to reflect on its performance. It's time for the council leader to reflect on her performance, because this should not even need saying, but it is nowhere near good enough. It's time for those in power to take responsibility instead of passing the buck on to residents and asking them to pay more. Now, I cannot, in good conscience, vote for what is before us this evening. To do so would amount to an endorsement of the way that this Labour Council is being run. Now is not the time to bury heads in the sand. It's time to admit that there's a problem and do something about it. This Labour Council needs to wake up to the fact that its performance is not up to standard. Things need to change, and they need to change fast.
Thank you, Councillor Carroll. Councillor Collins.
Thank you. I am very disappointed the council want to raise rents by 6.7% in a time when many of our tenants are already experiencing difficulties in just being able to afford to live. We are in a cost of living crisis. Our tenants are being squeezed in every way possible from every direction. Poverty is a very real issue. Typically, council tenants are from a lower socioeconomic background, working jobs that pay lower wages. Some have medical conditions that limit the work they can do, if they can work at all. Others are elderly, others have families with small children. In short, they are the most vulnerable residents in the Vale. This rent rise is above inflation and will force our tenants to tighten their belts even more in a time when many are already choosing to heat or eat, or wondering if they can afford to have more than one meal on any given day. I would like to know what other plans were looked at before this decision was made. I would also like to ask the leader and the cabinet where their compassion is. As chair of Homes and Safe Communities Scrutiny Committee, I voted against this last week. In all good conscience, I cannot support this and will be voting against it again tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. Councillor Charles.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Following on from everything that's been said, I don't want to repeat anything, so I'll keep it as briefly as I can. And as this has been said, the maximum allowable uplift has been set by Welsh Government at 6.7% for 24-25. The council proposes to increase its rent by an average of 6.7%, as Welsh Government has told them. The Vale of Glamorgan Council Housing Business Plan, March 2024, I noted that the taxpayer will in future be providing floor covering, water butts and cycle stores for council tenants. I suspect rainwater will be provided by others, but what about the cycles? The aim of the council to adopt AECB Carlton Life standards in all new building properties is admirable. Has a comparison of building costs been undertaken to establish, though, if budgets for this business's plan reflects the proposed improvement building methods? I'd like to know. I am sorry to see that the council has opted for the maximum allowable increase to the council tenants' rent, but would expect nothing different, seeing that the council has so poorly managed the housing revenue account budget, and I will not be supporting this.
Thank you, Councillor Charles. Councillor Hennessy.
Thank you. I was the second member of Homes and Safer Community Committee to vote against this proposal. The vote was not unanimous. Myself and my fellow councillor, the chair, voted against it. All of Labour and the Independents voted for this 6.7% increase. I pointed out to them that on a flat, that's an increase of £26 plus, and on a house, over 28%, £28. If you then do a 4.9% council tax increase, that's over £30 increase per month. It is not on and it is not right. The Labour Council should be thinking of their council tenants and not anyone else. We need to look at this again. For myself, I will be voting against this, and like Councillor Ian Johnson, I will be calling for a recorded vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hennessy. Councillor Perks.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Councillor Perks.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yes, as cabinet member, obviously, I'm going to support this recommendation, these recommendations to the committee. I think what we have to take into consideration is that we do have a large housing stock. We also have the Welsh quality standards, housing standards that we are implementing throughout our housing stock. If we look at the energy efficiencies that we're implementing, the roofing, the windows, the bathrooms, the kitchens that we have implemented to make sure that the housing stock that we provide for our tenants is of the highest quality. Now, currently we're on Welsh Housing Quality Standards Level C. We have got in the future Welsh Housing Quality Standards A to implement, which is really important because what this also does is it spends to save, and that's not just for the council itself, it's for the tenants. They actually will save money on the energy that they use by the high quality of energy efficiency sort of renewals that we make to the existing properties that we have. And, you know, that does have to be paid for. And unfortunately, I won't take any lectures from the Conservative group, where the autumn statement didn't even mention local authorities or any extra money for local authorities. We need to actually implement these changes for our tenants. We do have a you know, an ambitious building plan. We have 300 families that are actually, or 300 people that are homeless. Over the next year, there'll be 81 properties coming online for people to be able to sort of reside in, and we will be going into sort of working with Cardiff Council, working with a major builder to actually make sure that we have more houses coming online, so that our homelessness problem, you know, we can eradicate or make it as less as possible. So I think this, you know, is something that we do need to do. What I would say to any tenant who's in financial difficulties, please speak to the council. You know, if you've read the report, 1.8 is no evictions due to financial hardship for the term of the settlement, where tenants engage with their landlords. So I would encourage you, if you are sort of facing financial difficulties, that you do speak to the council. And yes, I do recommend this, that we accept this recommendation of 6.7%. We do need to make improvements to the stock that we have, and we do need to build qualities that are fit for purpose, fit for the future. I was lucky enough to go and look at the housing stock on the Bendricks that be coming online shortly, and the quality of standard there is absolutely second to none. You know, the future proofing for anybody that may need adaptations in the future, it'll be there for people already. The quality that we have, and I would suggest to any councillor, you know, who wants to look at what the council housing that we're building, come and have a look at the council housing that we're building. It is second to none. We are 30% less than private rented. We are less than the RSLs as well. So yes, I will be supporting and voting for these recommendations. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Perks. Councillor Hooper.
There you go. There you go. Works this time. Thank you. And if this was an ambitious plan, I'd support it. If it was compassionate, I'd support it. If it reflected real lived experience, I'd support it. But on all three of those counts, it fails. And on the compassionate ground, I think it's something just echoing Councillor Collins's point from a few minutes ago. This misses the point entirely. And I think this cabinet should be embarrassed. One of the reasons that I think this cabinet are embarrassed is when the leader proposed the motion tonight, she failed to even mention 6.7% in her speech, which shows there's a real concern that this isn't going to go down well with people. Councillor Carroll talked about the inflation rate at the moment at 3.9%. That's the inflation rate now. Inflation is targeted to go down and expected to go down to nearer 2% by the end of the year. So when people are paying 6.7% more, that's upwards of 3 times the rate of inflation. This is unaffordable and unworkable. I'd also just like to pick up on the Cabinet member's point about spending to save. She's referencing an investment decision. If someone's wealthy, they can make an investment decision about how they can improve their position, how they can maybe have solar panels on their roof or install a heat pump. It's a decision they'll make. They'll often make it over 10 years, and that decision is something that will benefit them over time. We're talking about people, sadly, who are in our council housing stock, who are some of the most vulnerable in our community. And as Councillor Hennessy referenced, they're getting a double whammy in this as well, because they're getting hit by a council tax rise and a rise in their tenant income as well. So I'll be backing our not voting against this proposal, and I would also like to see a recorded vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hooper. Councillor Godfrey.
Thank you. I'm sorry to see that the council has opted for the maximum allowable increase to council tenants' rent, but it concerns me that there's no mention of any steps being taken to reduce the outstanding arrears of council tenants. At the previous meeting some time ago, my figures might be slightly out, but I'm sure a figure of something like £1.65 million was being mentioned. You know, I'd like to know what steps are being proposed to reduce these outstanding arrears, because it's okay hitting the law-abiding tenants that we've got that pay their rent week in, week out, but what about those? Not all who are paying it because they can't afford it. So I think this needs to be looked at as a matter of urgency. And another point that surprises me that's not been mentioned is that I know for a fact through residents in my ward and customers of mine in my working life that due to changes in the legislation in December 2022 to the house rental market, landlords walked away in their droves, sold their property. And that's a point of fact, because they said the pendulum was swung the other way, they had no rights whatsoever, so they had no interest any longer in renting out properties. And this has resulted in being a major factor with regards to the housing crisis we've had. So it's of no surprise. So maybe we also as a council and as a Welsh Government need to be looking at reversing some of that legislation to encourage people in the private sector to come back in and want to enter the rental market again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Godfrey. Councillor Marnie.
Thank you. I feel the situation is the whole country's been battered financially. We're going about wealthy people, we're going about people at the poorer end of the income scale, but presumably the majority of the country are decent working people who aren't wealthy and perhaps aren't almost destitute or having to live in social accommodation. But they've been absolutely battered. They've had to deal with inflation. You know, they're struggling to pay their food bills. You don't have to go on the supermarket. I'm sure we're all horrified at the price of stuff compared to what it was just a year ago. So I do feel that council tenants should take some of their burden also. But I would also, in saying that, say that, of course, a large percentage of council tenants either don't pay their own rent or a large part of that rent. So basically, any rent increase is going to be made up yet again by the taxpayer, isn't it? So basically, I say to robbing Peter to pay Paul, it's just one big circle of that money. I do see that money has to be raised to keep up the standard of properties and hopefully further properties that are being built. But I can't agree with it's just a coincidence that your proposals recommended the maximum allowable on this. Surely, if it had been a more reasonable increase, so it's shared about a little bit, then I think that would have been much fairer. So I couldn't vote for this, and also, of course, my natural inclination is to vote against anything that's proposed by the Labour administration. That's a default that served me well over the years, and I think it will continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Councillor Wilson.
My mic's not working. Yeah, it's now. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Yes, so far we've had a very interesting debate so far. I mean, clearly, if you look at the high inflation we've only recently experienced, and to a certain extent we're still experiencing, we've had 10 months up until November where inflation rate was actually 6.7% or above. And it's only recently it's gone down below that. And I think given the uncertainty in the world that we're facing at the moment, who's to say what inflation will be like in April or May this year? It may be going sadly north rather than south. So really, we've got to be prudent and sensible about our inflation. The second point I'd also like to make here is that, you know, I am responsible, as you know, the Cabinet Member for Building Services, not just neighbourhood services. And building services also involves, you know, repairing accommodation. Those costs have gone up much more than 6.7%. In some cases, over 25%, because as some of you no doubt know, the price of raw materials has gone up considerably. And that can be explained by the weaknesses of our economy. And that can also be explained by the UK government's policies of Brexit, for example, which is causing real hardship. Councillor Marnie, I heard you speak. I didn't interrupt you, and you are being impertinent and rude as usual. All right, can I continue my conversation, Councillor Marnie, please? Thank you. And also there's a couple of things, as you might have heard of RAC, for example. Now, the reason why we haven't experienced RAC is because over the years we've invested in our properties considerably and we continue to invest in it. Yet we had to inspect those properties to make sure they didn't have any RAC. That comes at a cost. These things do happen. And frankly, you know, this is something that we have got to do. And the other thing, if you look in the plan, is also retrofit our properties as well, to make them fit for the purpose, so it can address climate change, so it can have things like water butts by all means, because we don't know the certainty of water in the UK economy. We don't know what's going to happen in the UK in 10, 15 years' time. We want a future for our future generations, don't we? And I'm sure you will agree with you. Most of us have got, some of us have got grandchildren, and I'm very fortunate to have them, okay? And others will have relations who are much younger than theirs, and you want them to have a future. So really, it's about that as well. So yes, it is difficult, and I am sympathetic. You know, I was brought up as a council tenant, as many people probably are here as well. And I have every sympathy of that, and we have tried to keep costs down, but we're facing a real crisis. And it's something that, you know, we do have to sadly address, because as you and I know, you know, we're here and we have to produce a balanced account. We also have to produce an account here which is fit for the purpose and making sure that we continue to invest in our council accommodation and therefore reduce the house repair budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Franks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I start by saying that I hold Jeff Rees in the highest regard, and I would withdraw anything that he considers inappropriate, and I hope he accepts my statement. I feel that the Labour Independent Cabinet is saying that there is no alternative and you have to trust us. Well, that is quite a challenge to me and perhaps quite a few others in this room. Looking over the recent past at a few issues that are the responsibilities of Cabinet, it's not a pretty picture. I know it's been said before tonight, but I'm going to repeat it because the Cabinet doesn't hear what is said. There's the bus station fiasco. This has brought ridicule on the Cabinet. Pencoitra School, that this is an unmitigated disaster. To have a strike action around Christmas is beyond comprehension. The failure of so many Labour councillors to attend in person tonight is shameful. And I would say that, however, the decision to cave in at the Leckwith Keys planning application was shocking. The decision to reduce affordable housing to 10% shows that in the final analysis, you have sacrificed affordable housing in favour of other priorities. So you won't be surprised to hear I will not be supporting your proposals tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Franks. Does anyone else request to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Yes, it's been a good political battle at the moment, isn't it? With a final attempt by, not the final attempt, of course, the full increase in council tax is yet to come. But certainly, Councillor Carroll is come forward and making a big assumption that he's probably going for a 0% once again. But I remember the days when the Conservatives never considered council houses whatsoever. When I asked the leader of the council about putting money into council houses, he said, no, you don't do that. They all vote Labour. So let's not forget that for starters, Councillor Carroll. But I haven't come to talk about that. I've come to talk about the problems in the development of houses. Basically, we've talked about increased costs earlier, but I've had practical experience of this. A friend of mine who fits bathrooms, he's got to the stage now where he gives the price to the tenant or the owner, and he turns around, he gives them the price and said, right, there's the list of materials you need. Will you go and buy them? Because these people do not accept the builders' prices because they think the builders are charging them more. But the costs of everything out there is enormous. It's grown and grown. And whilst inflation has come down, the prices are still there. The prices that have gone up when inflation came in high, now they're still charging high for materials. And this council is no different. Contractors out there always charge this council more than the average people for the simple reason that they know the money is good coming from a council, as it isn't always from a private build. The costs are huge. On top of that, we're trying to house 6,000 tenants. 6,000 applications on the waiting list. Many of these have come onto that waiting list because of the private landlords. The private landlords who have bought blocks of houses and shoot up the price. And subsequently, some people now were paying 600 or 700 a month and now up over 900, and they simply can't afford to live. And they've gone back to parents to live, and they're on our council list. We're currently paying over $2 million a year to the Holiday Inn. Now we've got to house these people. Where do we house them? What do we do? Now that is at, yes, 6.7. Nobody wants to see an increase, but realistically, this is the housing revenue account. And this covers everything. Now, let's not forget that a number of people do get support in housing benefit. And if you read the report tonight, it explains in detail the support that we will give those people in difficulties. It's extremely, extremely difficult. And I feel, quite honestly, that the development schemes that we've got to do now are push on for better housing. We've got to house these people. That is the most difficult thing of all. When they knock on your door, what do? And quite honestly, my experience over the last 12 months, it's gone out of hand. And this is why we're supporting this tonight, Ladgate First Independence. It's a case of supporting people in the long run, in both ways, and it is extremely difficult. But you tell us what we do to build houses, how we house these 6,000 people, how we can take them out of the hotels. Come up with the schemes, not play politics across this chamber. Thank you.
Councillor John. Councillor Goodjohn. Ewan
Councillor Franks, you said that we're asking you to trust us. We're not doing that. There's a 47-page document in front of you, and that is the business plan. You have said that we have had failures in the housing revenue account. What are we spending our money on that we're not meant to? What is the failure there? What would you like to get rid of? You're welcome to tell me, because in there we have 37% on new builds. Well, as Councillor John has just said, we are spending £2 million a year on having local families in the Holiday Inn. Shouldn't we be getting them into homes, good quality homes that we are building? What about the energy efficiency? That's 15% of the plan. That's going to save our tenants millions of pounds over the course of 10 years, millions of pounds. Yeah. Councillor Johnson has said we don't have the money now. Well, they don't have the money now? Then we have support for people. £500,000 was granted to council tenants in benefits from support that our officers give. If we can improve that support, we can improve benefits claimants to benefits that they deserve, that they are eligible for, that they don't think to claim. 70% are on housing benefit and won't see the full cost of the rise. Millions of pounds can be saved for these tenants here and now. We are also the cheapest landlords in all of the Vale of Glamorgan. And as much as we don't want to admit it, we don't want to raise rents. At the end of the day, if costs are increasing, we can't offset that forever. We can't do that forever. What are we not supposed to spend money on here? Are we supposed to stop fitting in new kitchens when they are expired? What are we supposed to do? What exactly in the plan are we meant to stop doing? Because it is a fully costed plan. At the time of the scrutiny committee, I had questions around decarbonisation and if it would really meet our targets. Well, speaking afterwards with our decarbonisation officers, I can see that the plan is fully within our commitments and our statutory requirements, because we are required to by 2034, and that is the requirement we've been given by Welsh Government, and that is the new requirement. And therefore, we are hitting our targets, hitting what we are required to do by Welsh Government. That was the concern I raised, and that has been dealt with. The investment is there, right in front of you. The figures are there. Tell us, what are we not meant to spend money on? How do we keep rents down? Because I don't see any other way without stopping the invest to save for the council tenants. That will support people in the long run. Not a single person will be evicted due to these rent rises. Not a single person. They just need to engage with our officers. Not a single person. So, if 70% of people will not have the full rent rise seen, if no one is being evicted, if we are investing to save for our council tenants by improving the energy efficiency of their homes and massively cutting their energy bills and improving the housing stock that we have at the moment, the quality of the housing stock, along with building more houses to get people out of hotels and into quality homes, then where on earth do you see the ability for us to stop rents from increasing this high? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goodjohn. Councillor Burnett, would you like to come back in, please?
Thank you, Mayor. If there's no one else to speak, I would just like to summarise. As I said right at the beginning, this is a standalone business plan. It's a standalone financial plan. It's related purely to the delivery of housing in the Vale of Glamorgan. We'll have future debates, no doubt, about the council's finances per se. But I just wanted to go back over some of the comments that we've seen. You know, some of the emotive language about increasing rent to our most vulnerable tenants. Yes, that's why we want them to live in good quality housing, low energy housing. Housing for life. We've heard the chair of the scrutiny committee where there was pre-scrutiny, so it went to scrutiny committee before cabinet, so we could hear the comments from scrutiny. And I'm not totally sure, and I stand to be corrected, but apart from voting, I'm not sure I heard the chair actually voice any concerns. Talking about, you know, where are the alternatives, we're quite happy. We're quite happy to discuss those. If people wanted to discuss those in scrutiny, they'd had the papers a week before, as is normal. But there were no words, apart from we don't like it. And as was pointed out in that scrutiny committee, this is a whole package. You can vote down the 6.7, the whole business plan goes down. So let's have a look a bit at the business plan. If you actually look at the gross expenditure, 30% is on the capital expenditure from revenue account, and that is to do with things like WHQS, retrofitting, that sort of thing. Then you can look at repairs and maintenance, is 19%. And actually, our tenants live in properties that are maintained. And then you can look at the capital financing cost, which is 22%, which is how you finance the loans that we need to build more. And when we come on to the properties that we're building, Councillor Perks, as Cabinet member, mentioned that she'd been to visit some of our new properties that are coming on stream. As a council, we were able to save that scheme when the developers went through. Not only did we save it, but our team turned it around so the subcontractors did not lose financially. And by the time we get to the ultimate delivery date of that development, it will be back on track time-wise as well. I spoke to the Motor Neurone Disease Association and they were asking me about properties for life. And I explained to them that all our houses, all our properties have downstairs wet rooms as well as upstairs bathrooms. So that if people have access needs, then it's covered. I mentioned that there are power sockets at the bottom of staircases, so it's very easy to fit a stair lift in no time at all. So that if you have people who, through some devastating circumstances, need accessible houses, our houses will be able to be delivered speedily to help people. But I think I was most stunned by hearing some of the words from the leader of the Conservative group, because at the end of the day, who's the architect of the financial crisis we've been trying to get through? And the reason why an awful lot of our materials have doubled in price. Inflation might be going down now, but we've still got the knock-on impact of 10% plus. And that is through the costs of development. So I haven't heard anything unexpected this evening. I would be delighted to support a recorded vote, because I think it's good that people see who are being completely unrealistic in the aims to provide housing for our most vulnerable residents. And I will remember that when I'm speaking to residents about housing, and most of the residents that I speak to about housing is, when are there more coming online? And I say as fast as we can build them. So I confirm my support for that, and I again move the recommendations. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Burnett. Can I just say, can I thank Councillor Franks for his comments and his apology, and can I just remind him that all members can attend in person or elsewhere, as it's multi-location meetings. Councillor Johnson, you were first to ask for a recorded vote. Do I have a seconder for your... Thank you, Councillor Collins. Can I ask the Chief Exec to take us through the vote, please?
Yeah, we've already
had
got six.
Thank you.
So, with the recorded vote, sorry, something up's happened.
Yeah, I wanted to make a point, if I could.
Is it a point of order?
Yes. It's the fact that I'm uncomfortable with the quote that's been made a few times tonight about the definition of somebody living in a council house is amongst the most vulnerable in our community, and that's not the case in all cases.
Councillor Godfrey, it's not a point of order. Thank you. Can I ask the Chief Exec to take us through the vote?
So
please?
for the recorded vote, using the software, you'll be able to vote either for the recommendations as they appear in the report before you or against, or you are able to abstain using the keypads that you've got. And that will record how every member is voting. So there's no need to go through the roll call to do a recorded vote, you'll be pleased to know. And we will leave the software open for 20 seconds to allow you to vote.
Just to clarify then, so it'll be the plus will be
Plus is for,
yes.
Minus is against,
yeah.
And the middle one is abstain. So 0 is abstain, plus is for the recommendations, minus is against. It'll be open in a moment once I finish explaining. So you'll have 20 seconds, and if anybody's pressed the wrong button in that 20 seconds, press again, and your next use of the keypad will override the previous one, if that makes sense. So let's say you want to vote against and you wanted to vote for. You can change your minus to a plus, or for balance, if you voted for and want to vote against, you could do vice versa. Okay, so Matt will open the vote and you'll have 20 seconds to vote. Thank you.
Just to say my system's gone down, can I vote by just saying my vote, please?
If at the end of the 20 seconds we find there are a few members who haven't been able to vote, we'll do that, yes. Okay, we've got 47 votes cast, 54 members, minus 6 apologies this evening, unless I'm miscounting, means one member hasn't voted. Do we know who hasn't voted, Matt? Can you know from the system? We'll just find out who hasn't voted.
Thank you for your patience, members, whilst we just sort out the vote.
We think it might be Councillor Drake, so can we, Councillor Wilkinson or Councillor Drake, has one of you not voted?
Yeah, well, I'm with Councillor Drake, so it might be me, Councillor Wilkinson, and I'm for.
So you're for, okay, thank you, Councillor Wilkinson, thanks for explaining that. So on that.
Yeah, I have actually voted, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. $29 votes in favour.
34 with Margaret, 30 with Margaret.
How many against? 17 against and 1 abstention. And you'll see how people have voted on the screen behind you, in front of you and behind you, which gives you the recorded vote. So thank you for using that system. And I'm pleased to say it worked quite well, I thought. Councillor Marnie.
Quickie, just ask, as you know, I've been wanting recorded votes totally for years and campaigning for it and losing vote after vote. Does this mean now with this hybrid meeting that all votes will be recorded anyway?
You can still, under the Constitution, ask for a recorded vote, but by definition, the software will record how everybody votes, yes.
For public display, because us in here would always be using this, wouldn't we?
Not for public display. They'd only be shown publicly if it's a recorded vote.
Okay, thanks.
Because of the way the Constitution is written.
So we're still no closer to what I want, but thank you anyway for that explanation.
Councillor Johnson.
Just on a point of order, I'm sure that Councillor Marnie could bring a motion to council at some point to change the constitution or have that discussion in Democratic Services or somewhere else. I know. We know of the technology. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. We have 29 for, 17 against and 1 abstention. The report is carried, and that brings to the end the meeting of the council. Thank you very much, everyone, for your patience and good debate. Thank you.